McInerney finds Neal with the tap. He feeds it to McCarthy, who snaps goalward. There you go. Brisbane get the opener.
Let it go. 100 metres, 100. Another 50.
So they've gone the 100. Tom Hawkett's got in the way of Dane Zorko from Guthrie, but it spills to the front. Zorko bounces it goalwards and puts it through. Worked off it by Cameron. Umpire said play on, it was in the contest. Hugh wins it on the deck. Was he legged? Play on still. Now he's wrapped up. And the Cats start 6-0 for the first time since 2013.
The Brisbane Lions Fancast is back 0 from 3 at the Gabba, 1 from 1 at the MCG. If you had told me that 6 weeks ago, I certainly wouldn't have believed you, but here we are after a torrential downpour at the Gabba, a good arm wrestle with Geelong for 2.5 quarters before the Cats ran away with it, and we just could not kick a goal. Big fan of behinds. But another loss to add to the tally for the Lions, which brings us 2-4 with the Giants down at Canberra awaiting another away trip. Hopefully we can gather ourselves and put together a performance, because that's coming up very quickly on Thursday. This is all thanks to hoponbrewerytours.com.au and Crisp Communications, crispcoms.co. If you want to book yourself a half or full day tour and visit some of the best breweries across Gold Coast and Brisbane, do that through hoponbrewerytours.com.au. Or if your business needs a little bit of marketing, digital marketing, or if you need help with your very own podcast, hit up Chris Communications and you get yourself a free Brisbane Lions fans car sticker as well. Patrick is here to join me to talk about round 6 against the Cats, who are now undefeated, top of the ladder. How did you see the game, mate, from where you were sitting?
A lot drier, but I think it's probably best put in perspective by this text message I got from my brother the following day that said, just checking in to make sure you haven't developed some sort of multiple personality disorder or schizophrenia from having to analyse this team this year. ... Sending thoughts and prayers, X.
Yep. Fair enough.
So I think that kind of sums the majority of it up.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, I think I've got a better grasp on my identity than this football club at this point in time. But whether that's a holistic thing or whether that's just individuals remains to be seen.
Well,
but it was horrible.
Just when you thought we were starting to be back in form with wins against North and Melbourne, which is probably the bigger of the two, obviously. Brought back to reality with another loss at the Gabba. It started back last week. Charlie Cameron was in the news all week because of his tribunal hearing and getting let off with the good bloke clause. Fags had a go at a journo and his presser on the Friday morning, whenever it was, which was pretty funny. So there was only one change. Zach Bailey goes out after we chatted about his potential role change in last week's podcast.
That was to spite us, wasn't it?
And then your mate Jared Lyons comes in as sub. Tunstall moves into the 22-23, and, well, it all just sort of went pear-shaped when Al Ruckman went down with a nasty knock to the eye and a concussion, and it just, threw out our structure completely, but it has to be said Geelong played the conditions much smarter and much better than we did.
Yeah, I must admit, obviously with the change in the team, I was quite angry, understandably, I would say. But kind of coming into midway through the first quarter, I was thinking, ooh, maybe they were onto something with the sort of did they check the ants or the weird rain kind of weather shit they had? Remember those weird chemistry rain sets you had as a kid?
No, I don't.
I didn't have one either, but I remember them for some reason. Maybe they had one of those, and I thought it may have been a masterstroke. As it was, it wasn't. Question with that, though. So it looks like, I thought that Owie had fractured his orbital as soon as it happened. The big question is, if they knew that he was concussed or they knew that he had an injury, why did JL not warm up?
I think
at any point.
I think because it happened in the second quarter and they knew it was in the 15-20 minutes to half time. I think they were trying to give Oscar every chance because they knew that was going to completely ruin our structure in this game. So I think they were giving Oscar every chance to pass the concussion test. And this is just purely speculation at this point. Because I was at the game, I wasn't getting any sort of information via TV or anything like that. So maybe it wasn't black and white concussion, and maybe it was a bit more of a facial injury. So they were trying, that's the only thing I can think of, is they were trying everything they possibly could to keep Oscar in the game, because he was doing a number on Conway, who I'd never heard of up until this game. I think it was only,
sixth game, I believe.
So in a year where he has struggled to dominate in the ruck, he was finally getting that opportunity, and then gets taken away from him. We end up losing one of our key forwards and one of our midfielders to play that ruck role, and it just had a flow-on effect.
Yeah, I still find it a little bit strange because I feel like it's generally pretty clear if they're concussed, they're concussed. There was note made of it on the bench that it was sort of a bit of a thumbs up. He's good to go, and then he didn't come back up to half time. If you probably asked me before the game, would I be willing to swap an O out for a Tom Stewart out, I probably would have given you that trade.
The thing is, they could cover that much easier than we could cover our loss.
Yeah, true. But at the same time, in a game, game state where talls should have been less valuable and smalls should have been one that were the ones making the impact. Tom Stewart could have done a lot. I don't know. I agree with you. It was definitely Owi's best quarter and a half of the season. He took 2 marks.
Yeah, one just floating in the hole.
Wet.
Yeah, one floating in the hole down in the back line as well. He just sort of at the game, watching it from the stands, he sort of just popped out of nowhere, and he might have been a bit more in focus on the TV. But all of a sudden, Oscar just pops up in the hole, takes a chest mark in the back pocket, which was a nice little surprise. But we got off to a great start. Barely went in there half the ground for the first 10, 15 minutes. Kept them scoreless for a while, and then bit of an arm wrestle for 2 quarters before about halfway through the third, and Geelong just got a bit of a run on.
Yeah, we were kind of trying to play more of a dry footy game in the first quarter, just in terms of our usual locking in, high pressure sort of stuff. It was almost like, when it's raining but not heavily in the Formula One, where they're like, shit, go out and put some laps in quickly.
Yeah.
Before it gets really bad. And then by the time it gets really bad, they can't catch up. So we tried to do that, but unfortunately there was, lo and behold, a bit of errant goal kicking. I got to admit, those 2 Danaher shots, one from 50 and whatever the other one was, whenever that was, I was like, he struck them so well, they're going straight through. Not. Normally Danaher's ones, they either go through or they're not good. There's very, very little it's very often that he kicks the ball well and it doesn't go through. It's amazing. Link McCarthy kicked a good goal, in the first minute or something, and then missed a set shot he probably would have wanted to get, or would normally have gotten. Story of our season, really, just not converting chances.
Yeah, I thought we could. I mean, it's the old adage of you flip this. What do we end up at? 4 goals, 13. If that's 13 goals for that whole gear, but just a few more opportunities in that first half keeps us in that game. Maybe get a bit of breathing room towards halftime, and it's a different contest, potentially. It just must suck the air out of your team when every shot is on. And how many times we hit the post or just miss something like that, and then Zorko gets 2 goals. Jared Berry kicks a nice set shot, follows it up with a bit of a mung a bit later on, and Link, and that's it. It's very rare that you can list all your goal kickers that easily.
Between 2 eyes and a nose.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you about flip them around, but I think kind of 13-4 would be unsustainable in the conditions. But if you're looking at it going like Harvard, or add them together and split it by 2/3, you're looking at it being 8 goals, 8,
yeah,
ish, and you're like, okay, maybe that still wouldn't have won the game. but you look at it at different times within the game. If we're sitting there on friggin' 7 goals 8 or 8 goals 7 at 3/4 time, you know, we're in the lead. Things are looking a lot better. State of the game's changing. We're not chasing and that sort of thing. And then, there were definitely moments in the game that completely, whether it was self implosion or unluck or that sort of thing. And like I've probably carried on about it all year, where there have been moments that have completely gone against us. And like, this time I won't lie. I reckon that 50 meters on Brian Myers is less there than the one on Joe Danaher last week. And I know I said last week that like, oh, if it happened, I'd be all right. But like, Brian Myers just drops the fucking ball.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about your take on that one, because I thought they were basically comparable. I think basically comparable, Danaher on May and Brian Myers.
I think the biggest difference for me, and it's kind of funny given the whole Brad Crouch, Zach Butters thing, in terms of what is perceived as touching the ball, is that Stephen May, I believe, touches the ball, or he at least drags an arm, whereas Brian Myers is holding the ball in his right hand, and Harris grabs his left arm, which isn't touching the ball, doesn't touch the ball, and he just drops the ball. So, no. And also given the conditions, given that like it was a bar of soap and people couldn't hold the ball anyway, a bit of better judgment probably should have been made with that one. Not the case with the Tom Hawkins 100-meter, because that was
just dumb from Hawk.
Well, he put the brakes on like you do when you're kids and you're walking in a line on your way to class and someone says handbrake and they stop and your books go everywhere. Not a real story. And then and then to have the like most clear as day conversation between the umpire and him. Like, I've never seen that before. They didn't show any of the celebrations. They just showed Hawkins talking to the umpire for like 45 seconds. Unbelievable. I like it, but yeah, it's definitely a bloke going like, oh, not me. Like, don't be mad at me. I didn't do anything. And it's like, dude, you've played 5 billion games. Like, just like admit that you're a bit of a game player and move on. Who cares? No one cares.
It is 100 meters is a harsh penalty. That's gone from their D50 to a set shot from the goal square. So it's a harsh penalty, but he's only got himself to blame for that one, Tom Hawkins.
Of course, it's a harsh penalty, but it's like the sort of ones where, I don't think anyone believes that if you're standing on the mark and you move now, that it's a harsh penalty because everyone knows what to do.
Yeah.
Get out of his way. Like, he moved into his way and stopped. Like, it's ill-discipline and it's stupidity. And if our players did it, I'd be absolutely mental. The other two big moments of the game, I reckon, are just the Kalachi mark at the top of the square that Fletch took off of his toe and crushed it into the post. Like, that level of enthusiasm just is not super necessary right at that point in time.
Yeah.
And then the other one obviously being like just before 3/4 time, McCluggage gets infringed, I think, 3 times. Because I think he gets blocked in the marking contest. He gets legged and tripped. Jeremy Hawkins. Jesus, that would be a tremendous player. Jeremy Cameron, he wins a holding the ball free kick.
Yep.
And then decides to just rail into the back of people. They don't show it on the television because it was in picture-in-picture, so we don't know what the 50-meter was for, but then he ends up with a suspension for tripping, or fine for tripping. So riddle me that. 30 seconds left. Could have been a bit of a momentum changer. So those 3 moments, not to mention hitting the post 3 times and Joe Danaher's shots that looked like they were in that weren't. So, don't know. Fucking frustrating.
Yes. I mean, you can put it down to a series of moments. You can put it down to a whole bunch of stuff, but I think at the end of the day, and as Fags put it, we were handball happy and Geelong just played the conditions much, much smarter than we did. And like indiscriminate hack forward, kicks forward, just seemingly found Geelong players in the middle of the ground by themselves without an opponent within 10, 15 metres. Just gave them a little bit more time to hit up their next kick. Their pressure was pretty good all day. So, and how many times did we kick it out of bounds in the fall? Like, I know the wet weather sort of dictates you do play to the boundary a little bit more. I thought we could have attacked the corridor a little bit more. just seeing how well it worked for Geelong. But, you know, attacking the boundary line when you're kicking it out of bounds in the full. I mean, how many times did they do a count at some point on the TV? Because it must have been close to 10.
No, they didn't, and that's unfortunately not a stat you can seem to get. But no, I whilst I agree with that, I also disagree in context. So I think when the teams are set up, going through the corridor would have been terrible. But, you know, start going down the line, and then it would have been the sort of thing that on turnover going through the corridor would have been a better option.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we were just seemingly turning the ball over less. And I know that statistically it probably doesn't say that, but like when Geelong were turning the ball over because of those hat kicks or whatever, they were just streaming through the corridor. They also seemed to be able to like mark the ball pretty well in the second half. Like there was that one where I think it was like other Henry, the one that looks like a court jester, or like a medieval lord.
Yep.
Jack Henry.
Yeah. He didn't have a great
took
game.
a mark. Hawkins took
He didn't have a great game for the Cats.
No, of course not. But I think there was one moment where he took a mark, bombed it up the middle. Hawkins took a mark, bombed it up the middle. Stengel took a mark, and it was a goal. It was like 3 kicks.
Yeah.
Didn't happen at any other stage in the game, because it's amazing. And in a game where, like, arguably Geelong's smalls really were the difference. Our smalls were really not good.
Yeah.
Particularly one that wasted a lot of people's time at a certain tribunal saying he's a good bloke, which I don't actually think is the reason he got off. I think that it was low as low impact can be. But
and you know what? I think if the tribunal had said, yeah, we're downgrading it because it was low impact, then I don't think it would have been a discussion. But they chose to downgrade it because of the whole exemplary circumstances and all that sort of stuff, and everyone's left going, what the hell are you doing? And now Tom Barrass, who has got a very similar record to Charlie Cameron, if not better, has got himself a 1-week suspension, and obviously he's going to go straight to the tribunal and go, but I'm a good bloke. So
but does Tom Barrass work in a soup kitchen?
Probably. That, I mean, as AFL footballers, they all do community stuff. I mean, whilst I thought Charlie Cameron should have had his charge downgraded, I think I would have downgraded it due to the fact that Jordan Dawson had a very, comparable situation that was graded low impact. There's been others throughout the year, low impact. Yeah. Not because...
Well, I think that's what I said last week.
Exactly.
Like, you just show the Jordan Dawson one. There's the Toby Green one on Mac Andrew the week before as well.
Yeah.
Like, heaps of them. I mean, I guess...
And if the tribe...
luckily, Toby Green won't be able to go to the tribunal this week and argue that he's a good bloke, even though I genuinely think he is a bit of a good bloke. If we're going to say good bloke, just because you've been clean of infraction doesn't necessarily make you a good bloke. It just makes you boring.
Well, not only that, I mean, Charlie Cameron's had 5 or 6 sightings by the MRO. I know. So it was just weird. It was weird and stupid from the tribunal that have made themselves look a little bit stupid, and then a byproduct of that, heat's come on to Charlie, and then Fags copped it in the presser as well, and he rightfully said, "Well, interview the tribunal, don't interview me." Like I didn't let him off.
Did you see? I watched 360. Did you see where like Jack Rewalt was like, "I haven't been suspended," and they were like,
13
how many times
times
have you been fined? And he's like, I don't know, 3, 4, and they're like 13.
Yeah, that was funny. And then they went to Jordan Lewis, and they're like, yeah, you've missed like 16 weeks.
All of them on, what was it, Todd Goldstein or whatever.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, a nice little zinger from Jared Waitley in that.
Yeah. So that was all fun and games.
Hey, good
but
shout.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed as well, but Charlie Cameron looked to have face contact in the first quarter as well. So that could have been a reason for him going back into his hermit crab shell.
Maybe.
Because he was doing a bit of like, maybe his, quote, front fence got knocked in again.
Yeah. And look, that's
and given that it's taken him a long time to get over that, I feel like, not good.
Yeah, he's obviously a confidence player, and it obviously rattled him in the off-season with all the surgeries and stuff, and... maybe all the heat on him throughout the week has affected his mindset and confidence as well. But yeah, he had a night to forget. Charlie Cameron, who has historically performed pretty well against Geelong. So he'll be looking to bounce back this week, hopefully. Hey, good shout from you last week when we were speaking about Jeremy Cameron and his impact and how, we were potentially going to stop him. You said, would that be an assignment for Ryan Lester? And I said, yeah, but I don't think he's got the tank to run with him. But Froggy, one of the great games.
I thought you said you did have the tank to go with him.
No, I said, he might not have the tank to run with Jeremy Cameron all game to go up and down the field. I thought that might be where he gets limited, but... Mate,
well, I was mentally giving you far more credit.
No,
I thought you said he does have the tank, and I was like, good old Brooksy. He's obviously been watching them time trials.
No, you were spot on with that. Froggy had a great game, and for a bloke like Jeremy Cameron who has dominated the last few weeks, he wasn't unsighted, but he certainly wasn't as influential as he could have been. And maybe the conditions played into that as well. But no, Froggy played one of the great games.
Yeah, I mean, it is funny, like, the rain does kind of sort out the men from the boys, just in terms of, like, there's a reason why, quote-unquote, the better players tend to take marks and stuff like that, like, Harris Andrews is pretty clean of hand, generally, throughout the game. We talked about Jack Payne kind of off there a little bit. He struggled in the first quarter, but then he kind of came into the game and played, I think, Tomahawk pretty well. But, like... yeah, it just seems to some players adapt to it, some don't. And I think a lot of our talls, funnily enough, actually played the conditions a lot better than a lot of our smalls. So it's frustrating because it feels like that is a very clear thing.
Yeah.
And just to notice that the team are trying to chain handballs, trying to, play the old surge run and gun. It's like just forward and territory. Move forward, contest and territory. That's all you need to do in the wet. Funnily enough, like my partner had never seen a wet weather game really that wet before. And she goes, "Oh, does the game change much in the wet?" And I was like, "Yeah, it sure does."
Strap yourself in.
It sure does. I was like, smalls are king, and look for our smalls to be the game breakers. And obviously, that didn't age well because their smalls were game breakers, arguably.
Yeah, I think so, for sure. I think Stengel was probably, when all said and done, was probably best on. We finished, with 3 goals, something like that.
Well, there were moments, and at least they kind of learned, because there was one where he was running in at goal and kicked the goal.
Yeah.
Because I think there was a 3-on-2 in our defensive 50, and it's sort of like you have to play the man. You can't just hold off and fear him handballing the ball over the top of you, because make him make that skill. In conditions like that, it very clearly could have been one where you rush him, he handballs over the top and it gets dropped, and then you get time to recover. You can't just let him run in. You have to be making people in conditions like that make decisions and make attempts at things. So I think that's as much as anything a not playing the conditions for me. Funnily enough, probably missed a few of those Zach Bailey Mung rolling torpedo thingos. They would have been real handy.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's left to say?
Yeah, I don't know. Not a huge amount. There's just a few things here and there go differently. I mean, we still, as Fags has pointed out after every loss, we still want a number of key stats, but it doesn't seem to be doing enough. So another chance to right the wrongs this week against GWS, which is coming up in a couple of days. So got to turn our attention to that. So let's get to some votes for hop on brewerytours.com.au. I've gone Dunk's the one, simply because he put his hand...
Is real or fake votes?
No, I'll go podcast votes.
Good.
Dunk's one vote. I think, he obviously sacrificed his natural role to give a chop out in the ruck. He competed all game, still ended up with, half decent disposal number, and one of our better tacklers, pressure players. Froggy the 2, for reasons we stipulated just before, his job on Jeremy Cameron. And his best game for the club for a long while, Noah Answorth. The 3, just... you could see this was the game for Noz, that he finally felt like he had confidence in himself, in his body, in his game style, and it just you could feel that when he was playing. And I thought, despite the fact that he was in the news all week as well, I thought he had one of his better games. So 3 votes for Noz.
Maybe he's like an attention seeker and loved it. Loved all that stuff midweek. Or maybe he listened to the podcast and basically everything I said last week really transferred very well to this game in terms of the drop of the ball and the underneath shit. But I don't know. My votes, similarly, I gone Jared Berry 1, Dunkley 2, and Noah Answorth for 3. So Noah Answorth with a rocket.
Yeah. And it's worth talking about Jared Berry because he had the quintessential Jared Berry game. So probably one of our best on, but certainly had a few Jared Berry moments with his disposal. So
yeah, 3 out on the full by him. And I read an interesting comment that said his disposal's not that bad. It's just the ones that don't hit targets are the ones that go out on the full. And it's like, well, it's hard to argue. You know, what did he have? 25. I mean, disposal efficiency's out the bloody window this week. I tell you what.
Yeah.
No, I think you're more looking at meters gained and stuff like that. So, make of that what you will. The fact that Lachie Neale was going 28 at 75%, and I thought he was tremendously damaging to us at various times, just in terms of trying to be too cute. Whatever those 25% of kicks that didn't go to the man, they were nay good.
Yeah, look. Yeah. It's a wet weather game. The disposal's always going to be shaky at best, but it just seemed to be... It was obviously a difference between the two. And as Fag said, they played the conditions much smarter, handled it much better, and rightfully walked away as the winners.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of what I'm trying to say. More so just saying, like, make the decision to just, like, put some boot through the ball. Don't try and be too clever and, make short passes and stuff, which I think Lachie Neale was pretty culpable with that, like... he's got a funny kicking style, doesn't he?
Lachie Neale?
Yeah, it's almost like the amount of power that comes from the ball just is not proportionate to his, like, massive legs swinging through it. It's like... It doesn't make any sense, physics-wise.
No.
Like, he just, like, winds up, and then it's just like, pop, and it just, like, it just goes. And it, like, whereas other players have this nice snap and the ball goes off in a similar speed to the leg. His just, it's like he's got a pillow on the end of his foot. Like, it's weird.
He's been known to pull.
All I'll say about that.
Pull the kick quite nicely. Like last week against Melbourne, that handball from Rayner through to Chock, who then just sort of, as you said, pillowed it straight onto Danaher's chest, which was quite nice. So he's got the ability to do that. But then,
but I'm talking about him really putting his foot through it. Like it's funny, and that's one of the things I'm going to keep an eye on because it's funny, and I like keeping an eye on weird things like that.
Fair call. All right, that's probably it in terms of votes and chatting about the game. We've got plenty of questions to get through today. So as comes with a lot, plenty of discussion points.
We probably won't even have time to revisit the segment from last week that we never came back to.
Oh, you know what? Let's quickly.
No. Let's not do that one. Let's leave that one back in the shadows for another week because I think it is a segment for better times.
Okay, sure. All right. Well, you can always get your questions in. These questions are coming from Chris Communications. chriscoms.co. Get yourself your free Brisbane Lions Fancast sticker. All the details are at our website or through chriscoms.co. And of course, if you need a bit of marketing for your small business, then there's no better place to go as well. All right. First one comes from, I'm going to say, Matai, who sent through on our SpeakPipe.
I just had a question for the guys. Do we think it's time to look at a new coach? I think what Chris Fagan's done has been absolutely amazing and how he's restored the club. But do we need to step up to someone like Chris Scott with a bit more tactical nous for us to get over that last little hurdle to get over to get the flag? Because I think the team's capable and the list is capable, but I feel like at times we lack that tactical edge. And I was just wondering what you guys thought of whether we need to look at maybe upgrading. I personally think if we were able to get someone like Chris Scott with the list that we've got, there's no doubt in my mind that we could easily get over and get one, if not another 2 to 3 premierships with the list that we're building. Just a thought.
There you go. I mean, that is the flavour of the conversation anytime the Lions lose is let's get rid of Fagan, which, as we've spoken about on the show, completely reactionary stuff. But I guess it is the cry of people that have underlying things of, I guess it's he's right there. We've obviously got the list that's capable enough, and we are falling short, and we have done so for the last 5 years. And whether that's in Fagan's wheelhouse, yet to be decided. But I think people just want more to show for what we've got, and we just haven't at this stage. So the easiest and quickest thing is to go to the coach. But as we've said on the show here, is like, all right, well, fine. If you want to get rid of him, who do you want? And he's labelled Chris Scott. So unless Chris Scott's going, you know what, actually, Geelong, I'm done. I might go to Brisbane. It's not an option, and I don't know that there are any other options out there that have got the tactical nous that these people are after.
I've seen some funny names thrown around, like Josh Carr. Apparently, he'd be a great coach.
Yep.
Who knows? But at the same time, it's like unknown quantity. Yeah, look, we have talked about it.
Yep.
And it's the sort of thing where, like, we're not talking about it, and I'm certainly not talking about it because I'm going, there's an insufficiency in quality, or I don't even know if that's a proper sentence. But, is there a lack in quality tactically? And it's like, again, you're looking at the whole coaching staff, and funnily enough, on the Discord, Grasshopper said, input from Daniel Lloyd, who was at the Giants last year in terms of strategic development. Now, if we're making changes like that, I feel like there's more than anything, there just seems to be a bit of a block between the team and the players. The team and the coaching staff. Whatever that reason is. We talked a little bit off air, but so like my older brother, not the one that put the thing in the Insane Ramblings a few weeks ago, the other one, so he lives over in Europe and he coaches soccer, and he had he did a coaching course over in Portugal that was like, under Jose Mourinho at Sporting Lisbon, whatever. It was kind of high profile sort of thing, and not many people get to do it. So he said to me in wake of the Melbourne breakdown last year where we lost by a point, he said Fagan is the type of coach, it's less method and more like learning and kind of like mentorship coach that's trying to give these players the foundation to change things and make decisions in game and to solve problems on their own without that level of input, which in terms of longer term is a better thing. And whilst I understand that as a theory, I think, are they the right players to be doing that? Because we sort of see time and time again, well, even within the space of 2 weeks, we look at it and go, they followed it perfectly against Melbourne. They didn't seem to follow it because, watching at home, there was a hell of a lot of Fagan looking pretty pissed off on the bench going, they're not like taking territory, they're being too cute, exactly what we've said and what he said in the press conference. So it's like, are these the kind of players that, warrant having that level of responsibility to make those decisions? Or is there a kind of a strategic lack on their behalf, Because if you've got your co-captain, Lachie Neale, not making the right decisions, if you've got leaders like McCluggage and Rayner and stuff like that, who I thought had pretty poor games, McCluggage was not following what the strategy for the game dictated. And that's not really on the coach, like other than maybe his method or his style of doing it. And then you sort of say, well, does that mean that we need a different coach that's going to be more hard-lined? And if Fagan is trying to be hard-lined and they're not listening because they're going, well, normally he's sort of saying that we need to make our own decisions, and now he's telling us what to do. Is there some sort of weird disconnect there? I don't know. But yeah, I think it kind of comes back to the thing of, well, who else is there to do this?
Yeah. And I think that's probably for many reasons, the biggest one. Like, it's all well and good to go sack the coach, but I mean, sure, that's fine. Bring in who? So unless you can get an automatic upgrade that you're really willing to sacrifice the 5 years of hard work that's been put in, then I don't think it's
longer than that. But
I don't think. Yeah,
it's
not
a similar sort of thing because it is let's say, is Ross Lyon an upgrade? Would people think Ross Lyon is an upgrade? And it's like people would say he probably is. Has he won a premiership? No. So why is he an upgrade?
Yeah.
It's a perception thing. It's entirely a perception thing. And like, there aren't that many premiership coaches. Adam Simpson's a premiership coach. Would you have him?
Maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a maybe. It's not a definite yes.
Well, that's it. You really got to be sure you want to pull the trigger on it before you go and ho on it. And
think about who are the premiership coaches that are currently in the AFL? Adam Simpson, maybe.
Bevo.
Hardwick, you can fuck off. Bevo, no, not for me. Goodwin, no, not for me. That weird gremlin from Sydney,
John
not
Longmire.
really. Longmire, yeah. Maybe, but at the same time, he's not leaving Sydney. Chris Scott, I'd take him, but is he going to leave Geelong? Any others?
I mean, there probably is. I just can't think of Craig McRae.
Yeah. Anyway, like there's, you don't just. I don't think premiership coaches, just because you've won a premiership, necessarily puts you on like a higher pedestal. Like Bevo's in all sorts of trouble at the moment, and like to hear David King talk about him like he's some strategic genius, and like imagine what he could do at Brisbane. It's like, are you out of your mind? This guy is cooked.
Yeah,
like he's so cooked. He doesn't have the playing group there, like. And he looks like a weird washed up dude that would come to the club and not have the playing group because Josh Dunkley would be like, this guy's a wanker.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I got to say about coaches. So,
It won't be the last sack Fagan thing we hear all year.
No, of course it won't. It happens every time we fucking lose.
Yeah. And then last week, he couldn't get enough praise for his coaching performance. So, I don't know. It's just, it's people wanting what they're not getting. And I guess it's just like, well, let's put a face to it and a name to it. And it's Fagan.
Yeah. Well, I think the big thing with that is that you've got the people that are in the Sack Fagan camp, they utilize the positive of a win as ammunition to then throw back the week later,
Yeah.
You see things like, Fagan this, and you're like, dude, like, it sucks. He doesn't want us not to win. So, Anyway, next question.
All right. Next one comes from Steve.
Jack Payne played a few good games last year, and in my opinion, he's resting on that reputation. This year he's been a disaster. Fumbles, missed kicks, can't contest, poor decision making. What do you guys reckon?
Well, I would say that he hasn't been a disaster this year. He's certainly had some moments that have been pretty awful, and on Saturday he had some pretty horrible moments as well that directly led to opposition goals. But by and large, I thought he played Tom Hawkins really well defensively. It's when he's got the ball in hand, it's a bit of a 50-50, and especially in the wet, he made some absolute blues. But I thought by and large,
the old drop of the ball.
Yeah,
yeah. He's a player that is different. Yeah. I think Jack Payne. I don't think he relishes the contest or like contested pack mark type thing. That's not his sort of thing. And we talked about this and touched on this a bit last year, where he doesn't love the physical kind of. He doesn't mind the one-on-one stuff, but in terms of like the brute force that probably someone of his stature probably should.
Yep.
He's not the kind of guy that's going to be smashing through packs. And I think I made a joke where I said, he's definitely the sort of person you could like make a case of like, he's not that kind of player if something weird happened where he did like a Peter Wright style thing.
Yeah.
Because he's just not the sort of player that would, ever go out to try and hurt somebody. And he got a bit of like heat body on him in the game, and he kind of shrunk into his shell a little bit.
He's just not a natural footballer. He's obviously very athletic, and we're teaching him the nuances of football. So I think that's probably a big part of it. He's obviously, very athletic, massive boy, got a good aerobic capacity as well, and has got some speed on him, but his footy IQ was obviously down a little bit, and just the nuances of footy.
I mean, he is a confidence player as well, but I don't agree with you as much about the footy IQ stuff, just because I think there are plenty of players that have only started playing in their late teens, particularly guys like Jath or guys like Mac Andrew or whatever, that like I might be missing a few. I think Lika Leah is probably one that I'm probably mainly thinking of, because he had quite a good game for the Giants, and it's like,
Did he what?
He only started playing at 16 or 17 or something, or and it's like, yeah, that physical profile, it doesn't take that long to learn a game, I don't think.
No.
And if you're someone that's been in the system of an AFL club for at least 5 years, you should probably know what's expected of you at different times. But whether it is, Harris is going to be the one that's crashing pack. Same with Frog. Tom Dode, when he's there, is sort of the person that's going to be doing that sort of stuff, rather than like, Jack Payne's your one-on-one lockdown on a tall type thing. So Hawkins, perfect opponent for him, and I think you're right. He did do well in the latter three quarters. He got away with a couple with some of those dump kicks that fell short in the first quarter, which was good, but not a disaster. But he was borderline All-Australian in the first half of last year.
Yeah. And he hasn't replicated that form from last year, but he's not alone in that. There's plenty of players on our list at the moment that aren't performing to the 2023 standard they set themselves. So I'm certainly not writing him off. I'm certainly not calling him a disaster, but yeah, he has his moments, and I think that's just part of the Jack Payne package, like Joey Danaher. He certainly has his moments too. All right, Twitter, Miller time. Did Fagan not read the weather forecast? Honestly, what was that? I think
not on Fagan.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
not on Fagan, and it seemed to me like he did more than I thought, because he put Jared Lyons as a sub.
Joel on Twitter as well. Who do you drop from the back line for Connor when Noah is playing so well? And that's going to be a bit of a tough one.
You probably shuffle and like I'd reallocate Zorko, to be honest, but.
See, I'm probably more inclined to actually move Moddy up to a wing than Zorko, because I think Zorko's been really good behind the ball, and he was good again on Saturday. So if you're going to move either of those two, I'd move Moddy up to a wing and still have Zorko's creativity with the ball.
I think you're still going to get Zorko's creativity if you play him as a high half forward and you have him dropping back in, but I think more in terms of longevity, if you stifle Moddy's development by putting him up on a wing when he's going to be a long-term down back, Zorko, you're just looking at trying to get the most out of him for this year, I feel. So, I don't know. For me, it's reallocate Zorko, but
you still got to drop someone for Connor. So, and that'll probably be a Jasper Fletcher or an Archie, perhaps, who they're not doing anything wrong.
Tunstall showed some good signs. He was pretty composed. It's hard. Like, there's got to be people that are coming out. We'll wait and see. That's for stronger minds.
All right, Ross on Twitter as well. My eyes tell me we overused the handball on Saturday and left Cats with an extra in the back line for most of the game. We kicked 2 goals 8 from quarter time. Would we be complaining if it was 8 goals 2? And obviously, no, we wouldn't be complaining if it was 8 goals 2. We sort of touched on that a little bit earlier in the show. Different game at different periods.
Also worth noting though that Geelong did rush 5.
Yeah.
So there is that. But also worth noting that for mine, 3 posters and Danaher's 2 that looked like they were going in. Like, that's pretty wild. I also agree with that. I also think that it's a low percentage tactic, I think. Whereas, equalizing, going man to man across the field probably would have been a better way of doing it, rather than adding one to contests. And whether that was just a sort of thing where, like, we knew Tom Stewart was going to lag back and didn't do anything. Like, Darcy Gardner didn't go to Tom Stewart, so more fool me.
That's true. All right, Rod, is it time to try out a new key forward? Pretty straight to the point there.
I mean, not based on that game.
No.
Like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. I didn't think Hip was as bad as other people seem to think, because he got quite a lot of the ball, and I thought his hands were a lot better than someone like, say, Charlie Cameron.
Well, not only that,
and-
suddenly, like, as we touched on, Oscar goes out, it completely changes the structure of not only our forward line, but our midfield as well. So suddenly, Hipwood, who's getting the second best defender, is getting the first best defender because Joe's up in the ruck. So yes, I would like to see Logan Morris get a go at some point this year. His last couple of weeks in the VFL have been quiet, so he obviously got off to a great start. Brandon Ryan is actually playing. He's put together 2 good games since he's come back as well. So either of those two, I'm sure, will get a go at some point. And maybe that's at the expense of Darcy Gardner, or if there's an injury to Hipwood or Danaher.
So I have a question for you. I know this is in the middle of question time, but watching the Giants game beforehand, and they said that Jesse Hogan had kicked 59 goals last year and was 11th in the goal kicking competition wide. Where do you reckon Hipwood finished in the goal kicking in the competition?
In the competition, Jesse Hogan 59 and 11th.
Yeah. Yep.
What did Hipwood kick? He kicked 40 odd, 40, somewhere between 40, 45.
Actually, sorry. Hogan was 49 and 11th.
Okay.
My mistake.
I would have Hipwood down at sort of 15th, 16th then.
He finished equal 15th.
Yeah. Okay.
And Joe and Charlie Cameron were 5th and 6th.
Yeah.
And us and Geelong were the only teams with 3 people in the top 15. Now, like, it kind of goes case in point with what I was saying last week. It's like, how many goals do you expect Hipwood to kick? If so, Charlie Cameron and Danaher are going to dictate kicking more than that.
Yeah.
Like, and if he finished 15th in the competition, like, that's baffling that people have a problem with him.
Yeah.
To me, baffling. And he was number 1 for goal assists for key forwards. So I don't know. It was just something that I heard about the Hogan thing, and I was like, wow, 49 seems awfully high goals for, just outside the top 10 in goal kicking. And I went through a list of players that he kicked more goals than. It was like both Kings, Harry Mackay, this guy, that guy, whatever. Like, so whatever. Yeah, that's my question.
All right. Ali, what's changed in Zorko to make him our most influential or most consistent player so far this season, plus Froggy, of course? And I don't know that Zorko has necessarily changed anything. He's been pretty public about how he's been seeing that nerve specialist. There was a bit of a news article about that guy as well, who's done a lot of work with not just a couple of AFL players, but a couple of NRL players as well. He's like this acupuncture nerve specialist guru who's seemingly given Zorko new life.
Oh, God, I was thinking you were talking about like his pre-game nerves.
Oh, no. No. And it's obviously because he's been battling with that sort of lower leg for a few seasons, that Achilles and calf stuff that's been plaguing him and interrupting his preseason. So I think it's a combination of it's his first decent full preseason in a while, and maybe like he knows he's coming towards the end of his career. If not this year, then I mean, surely it's this year or next. And he's just hungry to get that premiership, so he's leaving it all on the table. But he has started well in a lot of games and sort of drifted and faded into the pack as the games worn on. So he's not.
I think there's also probably an optics element of the fact that there's been such a drop off from other players.
Yeah.
In terms of like, he's appeared to be far more influential than he probably would. We weren't exactly saying that he was super influential in the first quarter last week because Rayner decided to show up.
Yeah.
Things like that. So it could be a drop off, but I think he's probably just he's done similar to what Lachie Neale did last year in terms of like off season. He looks like he's carrying a little bit less weight, which for Zorko is like not a lot because he's pretty small. But yeah, he's obviously looking after himself. He's in good shape. He was in good shape last year too.
Yep.
Not to forget, and I think there's been levels to it. So last year he was talking about how his losing of the captaincy allowed him to prepare better for games. And then you're probably adding this on top of it. So, whilst we probably don't want to see him as our like top contributor or, most influential player, but I also think it's, if Kadeem Coleman's there, are we talking about Kadeem Coleman being the most influential in terms of our press forward? So, That's yeah.
He's
I think.
definitely had a bit of consistency this year, Zorko. He's sort of been in the top 5 players most weeks, so not complaining.
It's probably also more so that he's probably got a distinct role of what he's doing now.
Yeah.
And it's like an element of responsibility he probably hasn't had for 3 or 4 years.
And it will be interesting, as we talked about before, when Connor comes back into the lineup and if Zorko gets shuffled, if that, consistency will be the same or whether it'll throw him off for a couple of weeks as well with a bit of a role change. So that'll be a wait and see. But yeah, I agree with you, Ali. He's definitely been up there most weeks. Brad is already looking ahead to 2025. How good is 2025 going to be? Both Ashcroft boys, Kadeem's back, and so is Tom Duday. 2025 is our year. Now, it's worth noting as well that you know me and Daniel Hoyne and how I sort of don't respect the work that he does.
Now, wasn't it that I don't respect
I can't stand Daniel Hoyne, who looks at numbers and immediately thinks, well, that's football, numbers. He is big on the lines this year and is even bigger on them next year as well. He said there's a bit of a trend that shows the really good teams that are up there have a drop-off year and then launch. So, sure, maybe.
I think there's an element where underlying numbers in sport in general, they make sense for people with that kind of a brain, and for people with that kind of brain, that's what they're into. But there's merit to them, but there's also the element of like, if you're overperforming those underlying numbers, it's because your players are better. And if you're underperforming those underlying numbers, it's because your players are out of form. So maybe it's because all of our players are out of form. But I think underlying numbers, they work a lot better in soccer and they're much easier to understand because you go, your team should be scoring this amount of goals over the course of a season and conceding this amount of goals. Much more difficult to do when goals are like heaps of points and stuff in Aussie rules, because you can look at it and go, I don't know, who's a soccer player you know, dude? Paul Mullen.
Yeah, sure.
Paul Mullen probably scores way more goals than he's expected to because he's a good player for Wrexham in the second division. Whereas
League One now, baby.
Sorry?
They're at League One now.
Yeah. Well, for me, if I was playing there, my expected goals might be 25 and I'm scoring 10 because I'm shit. So, the underlying numbers might be like, oh, well, he should be scoring this amount, but he's not because he's out of, that sort of thing. So, on your Hoyne, march on.
But, I mean, Brad's got a point. The list for next year is looking even better with another Ashcroft and Will having a bit more footy behind him. But that's not to say we don't get to opening round next year as well, and Harris Andrews blows his knee out as well. So
Shut the fuck up.
Things obviously change. Laurie,
have you got like a piece of wood that you can like?
Yep. There you go.
I didn't see it. You got to touch that bit of floorboard over by that red thing.
Well, that's not real.
Get on the ground.
That's not real wood. Anyway, Laurie, Fagan needs to make bold decisions to make changes. For starters, Hippie needs a run in the VFL so he can learn to get more than 2 to 5 touches. That's Laurie's opinion on that. We've spoken about Hipwood.
Eric Hipwood, 13 touches.
Yeah.
Cool. In the wet. And let's, for context, more than Tunstall, more than Lohman, more than Starcevic, more than Charlie Cameron. So, and they're all people that you would expect in the wet to be a bit more on. So, don't buy that.
All right, Ziggy. For the last few years, we've been touted as having the best list in teams of depth, but even with almost our best 22 uninjured, we seem to be folding. Aside from the off-season trip, what do you think is the biggest issue? We certainly don't lack the talent. No, we don't lack the talent.
No, we don't like the talent. I'd like to see us use fringe players, and I've been saying that all year, where I'm like, I'd like to see more rotation. I'd like to see, Tunstall play a game not in the pouring rain. I'd like to see Dev Robb, not Jared Lyons. I'd like to see Logan Morris play. But it's also worth noting. So this is another thing that I didn't think about last year because I was talking, in terms of turnover. So last year we had Fletcher, Ashcroft, Wilmot was playing his first full year. We had Connor McKenna.
Yep.
We had Dunkley come in 5, and at the time we had Jack Gunston.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry to remind everyone. 6 players, that's 1/3 of a list that
Yep.
changed over the course of, a small amount of time. That's a massive level of change. So maybe I need to shut my mouth about the rotation and stuff like that because we have done a lot of it. Obviously, Jack Gunson can come off that list, retracting my thumb. And the idea would have been Duday come in there. But yeah, we've got a pretty good list. I don't necessarily know that it is. Well, they're just not playing very well.
Yeah, that's it.
And I think it's the sort of thing where, like, when you have been playing particularly well for 6 seasons now, it's natural that things are just there's gonna be a slight disconnect and stuff. And whilst people will talk about coaching refresh and stuff like that, we kind of have like refreshed our playing list last year quite heavily. So, are you looking at next year, another Ashcroft coming in, maybe another thing? Is Logan Morris going to be better? Are you going to get this? Are you going to get that? And it's like, yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
So,
biggest issue is hard to sort of pinpoint at the moment, and maybe it is just the shorter preseason, and just being up for so long, and a grand final's really taken out of us, and struggling to find the motivation to back it up again for another full year. So, who knows? As Fags keeps saying, there's still plenty footy to go. He keeps referring back to GWS and Carlton from last year, whose records were similar, if not worse than ours, and they both made prelims. So it's not out of the question, but it is certainly looking a fair way off at the moment. All right. Speaking of those fringe players, the Twos had another very close loss, 64-67 at Brighton Homes Arena. This was a genuine arm wrestle the whole game. I think the biggest lead at any point was maybe we were up by sort of 10 to 15 points in the second quarter, and then there was lead change. There was like 8 lead changes before halftime and stuff like that. So we cut it close, but didn't get away with the win. At least it wasn't poor kicking that sort of did us in this time. Bruce Revel had a great game, as did your mate Jackson Pryor. Darragh Joyce actually had his probably best game for a while in the Twos. Sharpie was all right. As I said before, Logan Morris was quiet again. 14 touches, 0 goals, 1. Henry Smith played a decent game, largely playing in the ruck. I tell you who had a very, very quiet game, and that was Dev Robertson. Now, I don't know. I caught most of it, but not all of it. I was sort of had it on in the background. Dev ended up with 8 touches and behind. So I don't know if they limited his game time, if he was sort of first emergency for the seniors. So that could be it. But, quiet numbers for him. But
when did they play?
That morning. 1.
Oh, okay,
well, sorry,
right.
during the day, 1 o'clock that day. And then the game was on at 7:30 that night. So that could have been it. Like I said, I might have missed it, but small numbers for him. Brandon Ryan was good, presented well, 3 marks, 9 touches and a goal. Sort of building nicely as he's come back from that injury. So
do they do time on ground stats in the VFL?
No, they don't.
They should.
They should.
Because you would have to wager that he would have been first drop.
Yeah.
But then it kind of puts in like, why was he not on the bench anyway? But no, neither here nor there. I also would say, just in terms of like Jared Lyons coming in, like a lot of people were saying, he got a lazy 38 touches in the Twos last week, and it's like emphasis on lazy, zinger. But more to the point that VFL games tend to be slower. They tend to be more stoppage-based. They're not as skilled, so it's not as quick. That's why he gets that volume of touches. It's very, very easy to understand. Don't just look at the number and go, that equates to AFL. Doesn't.
Now, we're going to have to obviously make one change with Oscar coming out missing with concussion protocols against GWS. The obvious would be Darcy Fort, but I would be almost inclined to give Henry Smith a go, who's been putting together some really good footy, a good marking target up forward as well. I just don't know if he's a number 1 ruckman. So it'll probably more than likely be Darcy Ford to come in straight swap for Oscar, and I don't see any other changes really. Is that the way you're seeing it as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going Fort in, and then I'm probably taking JL out, and I'm gonna do a little like throwback to the beginning of the season, and I'm actually gonna put Zorko as the sub and bring McKenna in.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, actually, you're probably right there,
Don't
McKenna.
say I'm probably right, because it's not gonna happen. Zorko's not going as a sub.
You're probably right that Connor will come in, and then there will be some shuffling, and that remains to be seen what that is. So,
It could be Tunstall onto the bench,
Yeah.
or something like that. But like, I still think that Dane Zorko would be a absolute weapon as a sub.
I think so too.
And I understand, needs must has been this season's kind of bane, but like, I mean, imagine Zorko coming in with the level of intensity he shows at the beginning of games in the last quarter and a half.
Yeah.
It'd be mental.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
100%. 100%. We're coming up against the GWS Giants, who, up until the weekend, undefeated. But in the last couple of weeks, they've lost Sam Taylor, Steve Cornelio, and now, at this stage, at time of recording, Jesse Hogan and Toby Green will also be missing Thursday night's game as well. So I don't know if they're going to appeal or send any of those to the tribunal to try and get one or both of them off. But that is a very undermanned Giants team, missing 4 of their very best players. And at a ground they historically don't play very well at either, in Monica. So Anzac Day game, it's a really good chance for Brisbane to get back on the winners list.
Yeah, looking at the Toby Green one, similar to the Peter Wright one in the sense that, but it's like, why is that guy going back with the flight? I don't know. Bit stupid. I'd just show them the Sam Taylor one and be like, if he didn't tuck his shoulder, he could have been brained. But that's just me.
Yeah.
Because I think that Boyd is showing a disregard for anyone else. He's not showing a duty of care to himself or anybody else.
Yeah.
So stupid. And I think you should be able to, if someone's going to do that, they deserve a bloody elbow to the face, don't they?
Maybe not quite. Yeah, as soon as Toby Green makes the decision to tuck his shoulder, it's all over. Like, everyone knows that at this stage. So, and he's certainly not getting off with any good bloke clauses.
No. And Jesse Hogan had some sort of really. I mean, you go to boxing class. It wasn't exactly a left hook, was it? It was more of a cat scratch.
Yeah, that one's a little bit. If they're going to appeal either of them, I'm sure it'll be that one. Try and get that downgraded to. Well, it is low, but it was intentional and high, so they'll have a hard time getting off that one. But
no, you can't do that unless you're going to say it's careless, and it's like, not happening. I'm afraid.
So
got one of the most feeble attempts at if you're going to punch someone, do it properly. Sorry, don't allow me on the tribunal. This is coming from a guy that's never punched anyone either, so it's like,
yeah, look. So
except in boxing class, but
it bodes well for us, for the Lions anyway. So we need to make the most of this this depleted Giants lineup, as I said, at Monica, where they don't particularly play very well. Our chance to stick it to another top team, albeit without their stars, but sometimes you need that, like Collingwood last year in round 22, 23, whenever it was. Obviously didn't work for us in the long run, but need the wins. Need to bank the wins, and this is a great opportunity in front of us.
Yeah, goodness me. Giants really decided to stop playing, didn't they? There was 2 like that. It was the Port Adelaide game and the Carlton game were so similar, where they just stopped. It was like, have a run. Collingwood and Carlton, just do what you want. Get some momentum. Great. Stupid. Really dumb by both teams. Really dumb.
Very much so.
That's my analysis. Dumb.
All right. Well,
just dumb.
Memorable games between the two. Have you got an iconic Giants-Lions game lined up?
Well, we've got one of the greatest games I'm never going to watch again.
Yes, there's that. The game that got Alex Witherden sacked.
And the game where you got to sit next to Jasper Fletcher.
Yeah, and Adrian Fletcher, which was great. even though we lost that one, I do distinctly remember at the end of that final, 2019.
Oh, the positivity towards the coach.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, the big Lions chant raining out because we'd gone from 16th to second on the ladder, and I think everyone was just enjoying that moment very, very much so. So that was a nice little bit, even though we lost. It was nice to sort of be part of that. The other one that springs to mind is the infamous Daniel Merritt kicking 7 goals against GWS in whenever it was. 2012, round 8. I think Big Sauce Merritt kicked 5 in the first quarter. Ended up with 7 for the day. Big John O'Brien took 16 marks. And we ended up winning by 92 points.
That's stupid.
Well, yeah, we were playing a bunch of kids.
Yeah, it's entirely stupid. Look, I'd probably throw in, and I have very minimal memory of it because, I'm getting older and your mind's not getting any sharper. But just the 2019, not the elimination final, the one in the season where we beat Giants by by 20 points away in Sydney. And it was just like we hadn't beaten the Giants for years, because they were obviously a good team and we were shit. But like, it's just a good thing to kind of buck the trend. And they had Jeremy Cameron and Toby Green and Himmelberg. And I mean, they've still got Himmelberg and Toby Green, but, they were contenders at that point in time. So they did play in a grand final. Got destroyed, but yeah, that was just a bit of a. It's nice when you beat a team you haven't beaten in a long time for the first time in a while.
Is that if I'm remembering this correctly? That was part of we had 2 we were going alright, but then we had that two games in a row, and it was 2 interstate trips. We went GWS down at the Sydney Showgrounds, and then we had Port Adelaide in Adelaide, and we're like, well, this is going to be the test to see if we're really a decent team. We came away with both those wins, and I think that was a real turning point for a lot of Lions supporters at that time. But yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to
so it was just after the bye because we had wins away at St Kilda, then we beat Melbourne at home, then we went away to Giants, Port Adelaide, then we beat North Melbourne, beat Hawthorn in Launceston, and then beat the Bulldogs, Suns, Geelong. That is a good run of form. Holy shit.
Yeah, not bad, eh?
Then we obviously got beaten by Richmond twice. Cool.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Just having a quick look. Link McCarthy, 3 goals. Charlie Cameron, 2. And then a bunch of single goal kickers, including Alan Christensen, Jared Lyons. Lockie Neal leading all comers with 31 touches, so fantastic. Another, hopefully, classic game between the two on this Thursday. Anzac Day game, which will be nice. It's obviously not the Anzac Day game, but I think the last time
an Anzac Day one.
The last time we played on Anzac Day, I think, was when we played St Kilda over in New Zealand.
What were we doing there?
It's when they decided that's what was going to happen. We played over there, and Andrew Rains got a cheap 50-metre penalty to get us the win in the end. It was one of Darcy Gardner's very early on. I think it was like 2015 or something. One of Darcy Gardner's very early on really great games in his career.
Yeah, far out. That is going back into the vault of brain where I feel like there's probably about a 6-year stretch. It's just like, I don't really know what happened.
Yep, and
it's all mush.
That definitely falls into that one. Well, we've got GWS this week, and then we've got the Q Clash, which we have still got tickets for. We're raffling off at our website, brisbanelionsfancast.com.au. Tickets $2. They are double pass premium seats if you want to get involved in that one. So brisbanelionsfancast.com.au, and like I said, hopefully get back on the winners list this Thursday.
Bloody better. I tell you what, how good's having like a 10-day break and looking like you've played that morning.
That's what the rain will do to you.